Captain Jake Morrison stood at the wide window of the Earth Defense Station watching the stars. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he kept holding the cup anyway. 3 years ago, those same stars had seemed full of promise. Now they felt like prison bars. "Another one turned away, sir," Lieutenant Kate Morgan said from behind him. Her voice was tired. Everyone's voice was tired these days. Jake turned around. On the main screen, he could see the human colony ship, New Dawn, slowly changing course. It was the third ship this month that the Council enforcers had sent away from the Kepler 442 system. 15,000 people aboard that ship. 15,000 people who just wanted to build a new home. "Where will they go now?" Jake asked. "Back to the waiting list, sir. Maybe they'll get permission to try again in 5 years. Jake set down his coffee cup harder than he meant to. The sound echoed in the command center. 5 years. By then, half those families would give up hope. The other half would be too old to start over on a new world. Dr. Lisa Carter walked into the command center. She looked even more tired than Kate. Lisa had been Earth's main contact with the Galactic Council since first contact 3 years ago. Back then, she had been excited about meeting alien civilizations. Now she looked like she aged 10 years in 3. "Jake, we need to talk," Lisa said. "The Council sent another message." Jake nodded to Kate, who left them alone. Lisa sat down heavily in one of the chairs around the planning table. "It's not good news, is it?" Jake asked. Lisa shook her head. "They're calling it an ultimatum. Humanity has 72 hours to accept what they call restricted species status." "What does that mean?" "It means we stay in our home system. Earth, Mars, the moon colonies. That's it. We get 3 other colony worlds, all of them picked by the Council, all of them watched by Council ships." Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. "And if we don't agree?" "Economic sanctions first, then military action." Lisa pulled out a data pad and showed him the message. "They say we're expanding too fast, that we're too focused on military development. They say other species are concerned about human aggressive tendencies." Jake read the message twice. The words were polite, but the meaning was clear. "Submit or be destroyed." "There's more," Lisa said quietly. "I've been monitoring Council communications. The real reason isn't what they're telling us." "What do you mean?" Lisa stood up and walked to the main display. She pulled up a star map showing human colonies and Council territories. "Look at this. 3 years ago, humans had 1 world. Now we have 23 colonies and 15 more being built. Our ships are faster than most Council designs. Our weapons are more advanced than anything they've seen in centuries." Jake studied the map. "We're growing fast. Too fast for their comfort. I intercepted a communication between 2 Council members last week. They're not worried about us being aggressive. They're worried about us being better than them." The cold feeling in Jake's stomach got worse. "They're afraid of us. Terrified. One of them said that at our current rate of growth, humans will be able to challenge Council authority within a generation. They want to stop us now while they still can." Jake looked back at the star map. 23 human colonies. Millions of people who had left Earth to build new lives. Children being born on worlds hundreds of light years away. All of it about to be taken away because humanity was succeeding too well. "What does Admiral Hughes say?" Jake asked. "He's in emergency meetings with the government." "But Jake, they're going to tell us to comply. Earth can't fight the entire Council. 12 species, hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships." Jake walked back to the window. The colony ship New Dawn was almost out of sight now. Somewhere on that ship, a child was probably asking their parents why they couldn't go to their new home. The parents would have to explain that other people they had never met, had decided that humans didn't deserve that world. "Captain Morrison," Kate's voice came through the comm system. "Admiral Hughes is requesting immediate conference with all station commanders." Jake looked at Lisa. "This is it, isn't it? They're going to order us to stand down." Lisa nodded. "The Council inspection teams are already on their way. They want to catalog all our military assets. Ships, weapons, defensive systems, everything." The comm system crackled again. Captain Morrison, please respond. Jake reached for the comm button, then stopped. He thought about the colony ship disappearing into the darkness. He thought about the families aboard who would never get to see their new world. He thought about the millions of humans spread across 23 colonies, all of them about to become prisoners in their own homes. He thought about his own daughter, born on Mars, who had never seen Earth's blue sky. Would she ever get the chance to explore the galaxy? Or would she spend her whole life in the cage the Council was building? Jake pressed the comm button. Admiral Hughes, this is Captain Morrison. Jake, we need to talk. Emergency conference in 10 minutes. We're getting our orders. Yes, sir. Admiral, before we start that conference, I need to send a message to all human colonies and ships. There was a pause. What kind of message, Captain? Jake looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, Council ships were heading toward Earth, expecting to find humans ready to surrender. They expected fear. They expected submission. They were about to learn something about humanity that their databases had missed. I'm going to tell them the truth, sir. I'm going to tell them that the talking stops now, that humanity stands alone. Another pause. Longer this time. Jake, you know what that means? Yes, sir. It means we fight. 2 weeks had passed since Captain Jake Morrison's message went out to every human colony and ship in known space. The response had been immediate and clear. Not a single human commander had agreed to surrender. Not one colony had lowered its defenses. The Council's 72-hour deadline had come and gone like a bad joke. Now Commander Rick Taylor floated in the command chair of his reconnaissance ship, Shadow Walker, watching the Council fleet through his sensors. 12 massive ships hung at the edge of the solar system like sleeping giants. The largest was the Zenthari dreadnought Dominion's Edge, big enough to hold a small city. They're just sitting there, said his pilot, Lieutenant Sam Blake. What are they waiting for? Rick studied the sensor readings. They expected us to surrender by now. They don't know what to do when someone says no. The Council had sent the same kind of fleet to 3 other species in the past 50 years. Each time, the target species had looked at the massive ships and decided that fighting was hopeless. Each time they had accepted Council rule without firing a shot. The Council had never met humans before. Rick's communication officer looked up from her station. Commander, we're getting a broadcast from the lead ship. They want to talk to Earth's government. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms. Rick recognized the species from the files. Zenthari, the Council's enforcers for over 1,000 years. People of Earth, the alien said in perfect English. I am Fleet Commander Keth 97. You have ignored the Council's generous offer of restricted species status. This defiance ends now. Lower your defensive systems and prepare for inspection. You have 1 hour to comply. The transmission ended. Rick looked around at his crew. Sam was grinning. The communications officer was shaking her head. His weapons specialist was running checks on their torpedo systems. Commander, Sam said, are we really going to fight that? Rick looked back at the massive Council fleet. Any one of those ships could destroy his entire squadron without breaking stride. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was that somebody had to say no. Somebody had to show the galaxy that humans didn't kneel. Send a message to Admiral Hughes, Rick said. Council fleet is demanding surrender, requesting permission to show them what humans think of demands. On Earth, Admiral Ben Hughes stood in the command center deep beneath Colorado's Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with screens showing every human ship and colony in known space. Red dots marked Council fleets moving toward human territory. There were a lot of red dots. Sir, General Pete Williams said, we're getting reports from all sectors. Council fleets have arrived at 15 human colonies. They're all demanding immediate surrender. Hughes looked at the main display. So many red dots. So many Council ships. Any reasonable person would look at those numbers and surrender immediately. Hughes had never claimed to be reasonable. What's the status on Dr. Stevens's project? He asked. Pete smiled. She says it's ready for field testing. Dr. Amy Stevens had been working on something special for the past 2 years, something the Council's databases said was impossible, something that would make their big, slow ships into floating targets. Get me Captain Rodriguez, Hughes said. The screen showed Captain Nina Rodriguez on the bridge of the colony ship. New Horizon. Behind her, Hughes could see families with their belongings, ready to start new lives on a distant world. The Council fleet blocking their path looked like a wall of metal and threat. Admiral, Nina said, the Council ships are ordering us to return to Earth. They say our colonization permit has been revoked. What did you tell them, Captain? Nina's smile was sharp as a knife. I told them that humans don't ask permission to live free. We're proceeding to our destination. Hughes nodded. Good. How many ships do you have with you? 47 colony ships, 12 escort vessels. About 30,000 civilians total. And if the Council tries to stop you, Nina's smile got sharper. Then they'll learn why we named our escort ships after Earth's predators. The communication ended. Hughes looked around the command center. Every person there knew what was coming. They all knew the odds. The Council had thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, technology that had dominated the galaxy for centuries, but the Council had never fought humans before. They had never faced a species that evolved from hunters. They had never met people who considered dying free better than living in chains. Sir, Pete said quietly, message coming in from Proxima Centauri. Hughes felt his blood turn cold. The human research station at Proxima Centauri had 3,000 people. Scientists, engineers, their families, all civilians. The message appeared on screen. It was short and brutal. The Council had destroyed the station completely. No survivors, no warning. Just death from the sky to show the galaxy what happened to species that defied the Council. The Tau. Command center went silent. Hughes could hear his own heartbeat. 3,000 people. Gone. Murdered to make a point. Sir, the communications officer said, her voice shaking. We're getting calls from every human colony. They want to know what our orders are. Hughes looked at the display showing the Proxima system. Where the research station had been, there was nothing but debris and empty space. 3,000 people who would never go home. 3,000 people who died because they were human. Hughes picked up the microphone that would broadcast to every human ship, station, and colony in known space. His voice was steady when he spoke, but everyone in the room could hear the anger underneath. This is Admiral Hughes to all human forces. The Council has shown us what they think of human life. They destroyed Proxima Station. 3,000 civilians are dead. The Council thinks this will make us afraid. They think this will make us surrender. He paused, looking at the faces of his officers. Good people, brave people, people who were about to go to war against impossible odds. They wanted to see what humans do when cornered. Now they'll learn why we're the only species that hunts for sport. All stations, all ships, all colonies. You are authorized to engage any Council forces with extreme prejudice. Show them what happens when you kill human civilians. Show them what happens when you push humanity too far. The communication ended. In the silence that followed, Hughes could hear the hum of computers, the whisper of air recyclers, the quiet conversations of his staff. Somewhere in space, Council commanders were probably congratulating themselves on teaching humanity a lesson. They thought the destruction of Proxima Station would break human will. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 6 months into the war, Colonel Sam Parker crouched behind the wreckage of a Council supply ship. His small fighter squadron had hit the convoy 20 minutes ago. Now they were collecting intelligence from the debris while Council reinforcements rushed toward their location. How much time do we have? He asked Lieutenant Tony Walsh, who was downloading data from the ship's computer. Maybe 5 minutes before their patrol ships get here, Tony replied, his fingers moving quickly over the alien controls. Got it. Supply routes, convoy schedules, and guard rotations for 3 sectors. Sam nodded. Back to the fighters. We're gone in 2 minutes. This was how humans fought now. Fast strikes, quick escapes, always moving. The Council kept sending large fleets to hunt them, but you can't catch what you can't find. Human ships would appear from nowhere, destroy something important, and vanish before help arrived. The Council called it cowardly. Humans called it smart. Sam's, fighter the Night Hunter, slipped away from the wreckage just as Council patrol ships appeared on his sensors. By the time they reached the destroyed convoy, the humans were already light years away, planning their next attack. On the bridge of the stealth destroyer Silent Thunder, Captain Mike Thompson studied the intelligence his teams had gathered. 6 months of raiding Council supply lines had taught them a lot about their enemy. "They're not used to this kind of fighting," he told his crew. "Look at these patrol patterns. They're designed for formal fleet battles, not guerrilla warfare." His weapons officer, Lieutenant Kate Morgan, looked up from her station. "Captain, we're getting reports from other human units. The Council is pulling ships back from the front lines to protect their supply routes." Mike smiled. That was exactly what they wanted. Every Council ship guarding supply convoys was one less ship attacking human colonies. Every patrol searching for human raiders was missing from the main battle fleets. "Any word from Dr. Thompson's research team?" Mike asked. Kate checked her communications. "Yes, sir. He says he's got interesting news about Council biology. Dr. Carl Johnson had been studying captured Council soldiers for months. Not to hurt them, but to understand them. What he had learned was changing how humans fought the war. In his laboratory on a hidden asteroid base, Dr. Johnson looked at his latest test results. He had examined Council prisoners from 6 different species. What he found surprised him. "They're not predators," he told his assistant, Dr. Lisa White. "None of them. Look at these brain scans. No hunting instincts. No predator responses. They evolved as prey animals or plant eaters." Lisa studied the data. "What does that mean for us?" "It means they don't understand fear the way we do. When a human gets scared, we get dangerous. When they get scared, they freeze or run away." Dr. Johnson pulled up another screen showing Council military tactics. "Look at how they fight. Always in large groups, always following the same patterns. They've never had to deal with real predators." "But Captain, what about their weapons? Their ships are still more advanced than ours." Dr. Johnson smiled. "Better technology doesn't matter if you're too scared to use it properly." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Julie Green was leading her strike team through a Council communication station. They had disabled the guards without killing anyone, planted listening devices, and were preparing to leave. But Julie had noticed something strange. "Look at this," she whispered to her team, pointing at the alien workers. They were hiding under their desks, shaking with fear. "We haven't even threatened them." Her sergeant, a tough woman named Nancy Adams, shook her head. "They're more afraid of us than we expected." Julie had an idea. Instead of leaving quietly, she activated the station's communication system and spoke in the local alien language. "Attention, Council forces. This is Lieutenant Green of the human military. We have taken your communication station. We could have killed everyone here, but we chose not to. We will leave now. Think about why we showed you mercy." As they left, Julie could hear the alien workers talking in confused, frightened voices. Word of the raid would spread. Other Council forces would hear that humans could have killed civilians but chose not to. It would make them wonder what humans really wanted. Back on Earth, Admiral Hughes reviewed the reports from human forces across the galaxy. The war was going better than anyone had expected. Council supply lines were in chaos. Their patrol ships couldn't catch human raiders. Several Council species were demanding to know why the war was taking so long. "Sir," General Williams said, "we're intercepting more Council communications. 3 species are asking their leaders to negotiate with us." Hughes looked at the intelligence reports. The Council was starting to fracture. Species that had worked together for centuries were beginning to blame each other for the war going badly. "What about their civilian populations?" Hughes asked. "Panic is spreading through their home systems. They've never experienced war on their own territory before. Reports of human ships appearing near their worlds are causing mass evacuations." Hughes studied the strategic map. Red dots showed Council forces, but there were fewer of them now. Blue dots marked human positions, scattered but active throughout Council space. "Sir," his communications officer called out. "Priority message from Captain Rodriguez." The screen showed Nina Rodriguez on the bridge of the New Horizon. Behind her, Hughes could see the bridge of what looked like a Council ship. "Admiral," Nina said with a grin, We've captured a council supply depot. 3 ships, lots of equipment, and 27 prisoners. The interesting part is what the prisoners told us. What did they say? They want to know why we haven't killed them yet. Apparently in council warfare, prisoners are usually executed immediately. They can't understand why we're feeding them and treating their injuries. Hughes felt a cold smile cross his face. Captain, make sure those prisoners are treated well. Then let them go. Nina looked surprised. Sir? Let them go. Make sure they tell everyone they meet about how humans treat prisoners. Let them spread the word that we could kill council civilians but choose not to. The communication ended. Hughes looked around the command center. His officers were starting to understand the strategy. Sir, William said slowly, we're not just fighting their military. We're fighting their confidence. Hughes nodded. They expected us to fight like them. Big fleets, formal battles, clear rules. Instead, we're showing them something they've never seen before. We're showing them what happens when predators go to war. On his sensor screen, Hughes could see reports coming in from across the galaxy. Human forces striking council targets, disappearing before reinforcements arrived, always moving, always hunting. The council had wanted to cage humanity. Instead, they had released something into their galaxy that they didn't understand and couldn't stop. Somewhere in council space, alien commanders were learning that there's a big difference between ruling through fear and facing an enemy that has no fear left to give. 1 year into the war, General Alex Cooper stood in the command center of the secret human base on Titan. The screens around him showed something that would have been impossible to imagine 12 months ago. 3 council species had completely withdrawn from the war. Their ships were heading home, their leaders were refusing to answer council communications, and their civilian populations were demanding peace. Sir, Captain Julie Green said, the latest intelligence reports show panic spreading through council home systems. They're evacuating entire planets just because someone reported seeing a human ship nearby. Alex nodded grimly. This was the new phase of the war. Humans were no longer just hitting military targets. They were striking at the very heart of council civilization itself. Fear. What's the status on Operation Ghost Ship? Alex asked. Commander Steve Adams, head of human intelligence, pulled up a tactical display. Proceeding perfectly, sir. Captain Walsh has been running reconnaissance missions in council home systems for 3 weeks. He never attacks, never threatens anyone. He just appears on their sensors, lets them see him, then disappears. Alex looked at the reports. Council, civilian populations were fleeing their homes because they thought human ships were everywhere. The truth was Captain Walsh had only 1 ship and a crew of 12. But the council didn't know that. The psychological impact is beyond our best estimates, Steve continued. Council civilians are convinced that humans can strike anywhere, anytime. Their military can't protect them and they know it. On the bridge of the stealth ship Shadow, Captain Tony Walsh watched the scanner display showing the Zenthari home system. Millions of aliens lived on the 3 planets below. None of them had ever seen war. None of them had ever been afraid in their own homes. Sir, his sensor operator said quietly, we're getting lots of communications traffic from the surface. They know we're here. Tony nodded. Good. Stay on the edge of the system for 6 hours, then jump out. Make sure they get a good look at us. His crew understood the mission. They weren't here to fight. They were here to be seen, to show the council that nowhere was safe from human reach, that human ships could appear in their most protected systems whenever they wanted. Down on the planet's surface, millions of Zenthari were watching their news broadcasts with growing terror. The same species that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years were now hiding in their homes afraid of shadows. Meanwhile, Dr. Carl Johnson was putting the final touches on his latest project. He had been studying council psychology for months, learning how their minds worked, what scared them most. Now he was ready to use that knowledge. Julie, he called to his assistant, Dr. Amy Stevens, are the translation programs ready? Yes, sir. We can broadcast in 47 different council languages. The messages are specifically designed to target each species' psychological weaknesses. The messages were simple but effective. Humans speaking in perfect alien languages, describing in detail how they had moved through council space undetected, how they had watched council families from the shadows, how they could strike any time they wanted, but chose not to. The effect was devastating. Council civilians began to believe that humans were everywhere, watching, waiting. Parents kept their children inside. Workers refused to go to their jobs. Entire cities shut down because people were too afraid to leave their homes. Back on Earth, Admiral Hughes received a message that surprised him. It came from the Zenthari homeworld, transmitted on an emergency frequency reserved for the most urgent communications. "Admiral Hughes," the message began, "this is Fleet Commander Keth 97. We request immediate ceasefire negotiations." Hughes played the message again. The same Zenthari who had demanded Earth's surrender a year ago was now asking for peace. His voice sounded tired, defeated. "Sir," General Williams said, "we're getting similar messages from 4 other council species. They all want to negotiate." Hughes looked at the strategic display. The council's military forces were scattered across the galaxy, trying to protect supply lines and hunt human raiders. Their civilian populations were in panic. Their government was falling apart as member species blamed each other for starting the war. "What are they offering?" Hughes asked. Williams pulled up the diplomatic messages. "Everything, sir. Full human membership in the council, territorial rights to all our colonies, trade agreements. They're even offering to pay reparations for Uwo, Proxima Station." Hughes felt a cold satisfaction. 1 year ago, the council had demanded humanity's surrender. Now they were begging for peace. But Hughes had learned something important during the war. The council wasn't just humanity's enemy. They were a threat to every species in the galaxy that wanted to be free. "Send a message to all council species," Hughes said. "Tell them we're not interested in joining their council." Williams looked, shocked. "Sir? Tell them that humanity has a different proposal. We want the council dissolved. Completely. Every species rules itself. No more galactic government, no more council fleets enforcing council law." Hughes looked around the command center. His officers were staring at him with expressions of surprise and admiration. "Sir," Williams said slowly, "that's not negotiation. That's demanding total surrender." "Exactly," Hughes replied. "They started this war by demanding our surrender. Now we're going to end it by demanding theirs." The message went out to every council world. Humanity's terms were simple and non-negotiable. The Galactic Council would be dissolved. Each species would control its own territory. There would be no more ultimatums, no more forced compliance, no more council fleets deciding who could live, where the response was immediate chaos. Some council species agreed immediately, desperate to end the war. Others refused, saying they would fight to the death rather than give up their power. But the most important response came from the younger species, the ones who had never been allowed to join the council, the ones who had been forced to accept council rules without having any say in making them. They sent a different kind of message. They wanted to know if humanity would help them stay free once the council was gone. Hughes looked at the communications from dozens of species across the galaxy, all of them asking the same thing. Would humans protect them from the species that had ruled them for so long? "Send a reply," Hughes said. "Tell them that humanity stands with anyone who wants to be free. And tell them that we never forget our friends." As the messages went out, Hughes realized that the war had changed into something bigger than anyone had expected. It wasn't just about humanity anymore. It was about every species in the galaxy that had ever been told they weren't good enough to rule themselves. The council had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed that humanity would fight like every other species they had conquered. They had expected formal battles, surrender when the odds got too bad, acceptance of council authority. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping in the galaxy for too long. The idea that freedom was worth any price. The idea that no one had the right to rule over others without their consent. The council was about to learn that some ideas, once released, can never be put back in the cage. 18 months after the council's first ultimatum, President Linda Baker sat in her office on Earth, looking at the most unusual sight in human history. 6 alien ships waited in orbit, their commanders hoping for permission to land. These were not invasion ships, they were surrender ships. Madam President, Secretary of Defense Nancy White said, "The Council representatives are requesting an audience. They say they're ready to discuss your terms." Linda looked at the intelligence reports spread across her desk. The galaxy had changed completely. 3 more Council species had withdrawn from the war last month. 2 others were fighting civil wars as their populations demanded new governments. The remaining Council forces were scattered and demoralized, unable to protect their own home systems. "What do they want to talk about?" Linda asked. Nancy smiled. "Everything we demanded. They want to dissolve the Council. They're offering us full territorial rights, trade agreements, even military alliances. They're begging us to stop the war." Linda picked up one of the reports. It showed the current state of Council space. Mass evacuations, economic collapse, government failures. The species that had ruled the galaxy for 2,000 years were falling apart after less than 2 years of fighting humans. "Are they offering reparations for Proxima Station?" Linda asked. "Yes, ma'am. Full compensation for the families plus construction of a memorial. They're also offering to share all their advanced technology." Linda set down the report. 3,000 people had died at Proxima Station. The Council had murdered them to make a point about human defiance. Now the same aliens who ordered those deaths were offering money as if that could bring the dead back to life. "Schedule the meeting," Linda said. "But make it clear that we're not negotiating. We're accepting their surrender." 2 days later, the Council representatives sat in the United Nations building in New York. Linda looked at them across the conference table. 6 different alien species, all of them looking tired and defeated. A year ago, these same beings had demanded that humanity submit to their authority. Now they were here to surrender. The lead representative, a tall Zenthari named Keth-97, spoke first. "President Baker, we are here to accept your terms. The Council will be dissolved immediately. All member species will withdraw to their own territories. There will be no more galactic government." Linda nodded. "Good. What about the species that are still fighting?" "The Valdari and the hegemony forces have been ordered to cease all military operations. If they refuse, they will be expelled from our territories and left to face human forces alone." Ambassador Frank Miller, Earth's new representative to Galactic Affairs, leaned forward. "What about guarantees? How do we know you won't try to rebuild the Council once this war is over?" Keth-97 looked around at his fellow representatives. "Ambassador Miller, rebuilding the Council is impossible. Our civilian populations would never accept it. The war has shown them that Council authority leads to destruction. They want peace, not more conflict with humanity." Linda studied the aliens' faces. Fear was written clearly in their expressions. Not just fear of human military forces, but fear of their own people. The war had awakened something in Council civilians that their leaders couldn't control. "What about the younger species?" Linda asked. "The ones who were never allowed Council membership? They are free to govern themselves as they choose," Keth-97 replied. "We will not interfere with their internal affairs." Frank smiled coldly. "That's not what they're asking for. They want protection. They want guarantees that you won't try to conquer them again once humans aren't watching." The Council representatives exchanged nervous glances. Linda could see the problem. Without the Council structure, some of the larger species might try to build their own empires. The smaller species needed someone to protect them. "President Baker," Keth-97 said quietly, "what do humans want from this galaxy?" Linda had been thinking about that question for months. What did humanity want? At first, they had just wanted to be left alone to build their colonies. Then the Council had forced them to fight for survival. Now they had won a war that changed everything. "We want every species to be free to make their own choices," Linda said. "We want trade, not tribute. We want cooperation, not conquest. And we want to make sure that no one ever again has the power to tell other species how to live." Keth-97 nodded slowly. "And if species request human protection from others who might threaten them?" Linda looked at Frank, who nodded. They had discussed this possibility many times. Humanity will consider defense agreements with any species that asks, Linda said. But we won't rule over anyone. We'll protect them, trade with them, work with them. We won't control them. The meeting continued for hours, working out details of the new galactic order. No more council. No more galactic government. Each species would control its own territory and make its own choices. Humans would offer protection to anyone who asked, but they wouldn't impose their will on others. When the council representatives finally left Earth, they carried with them the death warrant of the most powerful government in galactic history. 6 months later, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human flagship Independence, patrolling the border between human space and the former council territories. The ship was impressive, built with the best human engineering and some captured council technology. But what made Jake proud wasn't the ship itself. It was what the ship represented. Admiral, his communications officer called out. Message coming in from the Kepler system. The Tau species is requesting assistance with raiders attacking their trade ships. Jake looked at the message. The Tau were one of the younger species that had never been allowed to join the council. Now they were free to govern themselves, but they needed help dealing with criminals and pirates. Set course for the Kepler system, Jake ordered. Full speed. As the Independence jumped to hyperspace, Jake thought about how much had changed. 2 years ago, the Council had told humanity that they were too aggressive to be trusted with freedom. Now human ships were protecting species across the galaxy, keeping the peace that the Council had never been able to maintain. The Council had been wrong about humans in every possible way. They had expected humanity to surrender when threatened. Instead, humans had fought harder than any species in galactic history. They had expected humans to try to conquer the galaxy once they won. Instead, humans were protecting the freedom of everyone they met. Most importantly, the Council had expected their defeat to bring chaos to the galaxy. Instead, it had brought something the galaxy had never known before. True freedom. The freedom for every species to choose its own path without fear of conquest or control. As the Independence emerged from hyperspace near the Tau homeworld, Jake received another message. This one was from a species on the far edge of the galaxy, asking if Earth would consider a trade agreement. Jake smiled as he read the message. The galaxy was a bigger place than anyone had imagined, full of species who had been waiting for someone to show them that freedom was possible. The Council had pushed humanity too far, and now they were gone. In their place was something better, something that honored the right of every species to live free. And if anyone ever tried to take that freedom away, they would learn what humans had taught the Council. Some things are worth fighting for, no matter what the odds.